Hi folks, Sean Shelf here. We've been getting a lot of questions lately about I bonds. What are they? Are they a good thing to have? So we wanted to send out a little something to you that explains what they are and how they can be used. So I bonds, or more technically Series I savings bonds, are U.S. savings bonds that are indexed to inflation. When they're issued, they mature in 30 years. So that's the real basics about them. They're issued directly by the U.S. Treasury, and you can only buy them one of two ways. Method number one is going to a website called treasurydirect.gov. If you buy it that way, you get an electronic bond. Now, I'm going to warn you, we've had several people go to this site and they'll call us and say, is this the right site? This doesn't look real. And the issue is, it's obvious the U.S. Treasury Department does not care about keeping up with modern trends in website design. The website was designed 15, 20 years ago. It looks awful. And that makes people question if they're in the right place. If once you go there, if you really look at it and go, this looks like something an 8-year-old did in their computer class, you're at the right place. So you can go to treasurydirect.gov and buy them there, or when you're doing your taxes, if you're getting a federal tax refund, you can direct some of that refund go into I bonds. Those are the only two ways that you can buy them. Now, the rate of return on an I bond is variable, and that's an important thing to understand. Again, when you buy them, you might own it for 30 years, but you're not going to get the same rate of return. The rate of return can change every 6 months, and that's based off of a formula that they use. And the formula has two factors to it. So let's look at that. Factor number one is what's called the set fixed rate. And this is set when you first buy the bond, so that doesn't change. No matter how long you own it, the set fixed rate is the same as when you first bought it. But then the part that can make the rate of return change is the inflation measure. So every 6 months they do an inflation measure, and then they update what the bond is actually earning based off whatever inflation measure that they did. So that's how a return on the I bond is determined. So there's good things and bad things about I bonds, just like everything else. So first, let's look at the pros of the I bond, why you might want to own it. First, it's U.S. government guaranteed. So the same government that backs FDIC is the same government that backs these I bonds. As of right now, a U.S. government guarantee is seen as the most safe and secure guarantee that you can get in the world. So that's good. They cannot have a negative return. And the reason I'm pointing that out is because an I bond sounds a lot like something else that exists, a Treasury Inflation Protected Security, or TIPS. These are also bonds that the Treasury issues that have a inflation index, but they work different than I bonds. Those TIPS can actually generate a negative rate of return, and they have in the past. They've given negative rate of returns. I bonds don't work that way. An I bond at worst can generate a 0 rate of return. And then here's the kicker. Here's why everybody's interested in these things right now. When inflation is high, the returns on an I bond is high. So if you remember that formula that I said on the returns, it's a set fixed rate plus an inflation measure. As of right now, I bonds are paying around 9.6% on an annualized basis. That's a pretty good guaranteed rate of return, but remember, that rate changes over time. So those are the good parts of the I bonds. Now let's look at some of the cons of the I bond, and the first two are really the biggest two issues with the bonds. And the first one is each person can only buy $10,000 annually direct from the Treasury, and another $5,000 through a tax return if they're getting a federal tax refund. Okay, now that's per person, not per couple or per family. So if there's a married couple, spouse one could buy $10,000 direct, and spouse two could buy $10,000 direct. For a total, the married couple could buy $20,000 direct, but then no more. You can't buy any more. For some folks, they look at that and the amount of money that they're trying to put to work, 20,000 doesn't look like a whole lot of that whole sum. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. You'd have to wait till next year to buy any more. The second thing is the limited liquidity. So these are designed to be long-term instruments. And what I mean by that is once you buy them, you have to hold them at least a year. If you buy them and 8 months later you realize, oh, I need to buy a new car and I need to use that money. Nope, Can't do that. The money has to be there at least 1 year. You're not allowed to get it out. And then from years 2 to 5, if you cash them in, there can be a 3 month interest penalty. So if you cash it in, they take back the last 3 months of interest that you earned. So really, these are designed to be held by at least 5 years or longer. Again, they have a 30-year maturity. You can actually cash them in after year 1, but there's a penalty for the first 5 years. There's a couple other cons to them. As of right now, if you buy an I bond now, that set fixed rate on an I bond is 0%, which means as long as you own that bond, all that you will earn in return is whatever the inflation measure is. Right now, that inflation measure looks awesome. But over the past 10, 12 years, there's been times that inflation measure has been very close to zero, so the bonds were earning almost nothing over 6, 12, 18-month periods of time. So as inflation subsides, these bonds are going to earn much, much less because there is no just set fixed rate that you're going to get. This has surprised some people. We cannot help you purchase these bonds. So we cannot buy these bonds in your accounts with Reliant. They have to be purchased direct from the U.S. Treasury. And as kind of a subset of that, you cannot use retirement assets to buy I bonds. So you can't use any money in an IRA, you can't use a Roth, can't use a 401k. They're not set up for that. The government just doesn't allow you to use retirement assets to buy the bonds. And then as a last one, you're not going to get any kind of paper or periodic e-statement about these. So you go online, you create an account, you buy them, that's great and all, but you don't get any kind of ongoing statement to show you what they're worth, what they've earned, anything like that. You have to keep your own documentation. Now you can always go back online and log in and look at them, but you're not going to get any kind of periodic, like I said, either paper statement in the mail or even an e-statement through email. You get nothing. So you have to keep track of it yourself, and especially you need to have some kind of documentation in case something happens for the heirs of your estate to even know this thing exists. Because again, there are no statements, there's nothing at all. You need to document, hey, I own these bonds and kind of how to get to them for the sake of your heirs. So that's the quick down and dirty on I bonds. They can be great for some people, might not work for others. If you'd like to talk about it and how they might fit for you, or if they don't fit at all, give us a ring. We'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Hope you have a great day.